Hello, Neogenians. Welcome to Dawn of the New Earth. Today, we are diving deeper into the idea of Earth as hell, but we're going way deeper than the video that I did on it before, because today we're exploring the idea of being inside an eternal, cyclical reality, forever looping. And in addition to that, we're going to be talking about the role of Sophia. Sophia, who is an eon in Gnostic cosmology, who gets a very bad rap for the one kicking off this hellish scenario by acting out of alignment with the one, which ultimately generates the material world, which the Gnostics view as hell and Yaldabaoth, the evil creator deity. But we're going to see that under the Neogenian interpretation, what Sophia did had it's completely different. We'll get to that. I don't want to give it away. But we're going to basically explain why Sophia did that. Okay, so that's what we're going to do today. It's going to be very good. And as always, my friends, remember, this is way more than a channel. We are a revolution of consciousness here to wake the world the hell up, spread enlightenment, make it go viral. And I just got a notification the other day that we have 65 million views on YouTube alone. That doesn't even count TikTok or Facebook or Instagram and all that. So that's crazy. We are reaching so many people, and help us spread this like fire by hitting like and subscribe, and sharing this video helps out a lot. If you want to help out even more, become a member. You get access to a lot of great stuff like free downloads on alchemy, Kabbalah, inner transformation, rituals, etc. And you also get access to our members only videos. We have so many of them, and we're actually filming a members only video right after this. And today's members only video is called "Is God a Myth? How to Prove the Shocking Truth." And that's going to be a really good one. You can also check out my books. Links are in the description of this video. And if you're looking for a free way to support, follow me on Spotify. It's a great free way to support. We're growing super fast over there, so give me a follow there. It's a great way to expand our reach on a new platform and reach new people, an entirely new audience. So the link to my Spotify channel is in the description of this video. Okay. All right. Let's start. Let's begin. Oh, also, I'm slightly under the weather today. I'm a little sick. So if my throat sounds a little scratchy, or if I have to cough every now and then, that's why. But that aside, let's begin. Okay, so quick recap for those who might not be familiar. The Gnostics believe that Earth is hell. And let's give a quick rundown of why that is, and then we'll explain the idea of a cyclical eternal reality and why Sophia went out of alignment from the will of the One. So essentially, according to Gnosticism, before space, before time, before anything at all, the only thing that exists is an eternal mind of light called the One. You can't even name it in Gnosticism. It's like you can't even put a name to it. So they'll just refer to it as the One or the Great Invisible Spirit. In some of the Gnostic texts, Jesus actually refers to the One as He Who Is. Got kind of like a Voldemort, He Who Must Not Be Named kind of thing going on. But it's because you can't. It's just so beyond. Language is static and immobile and restricted and limiting, and the One is everything. So to name it something is to limit it in some way. Okay, so I'll read some quotes from the Secret Book of John. Jesus literally says, "The One is indescribable, for no one can put any words to it." Now, ironically, he then goes on to try and describe it, which is a little, but you get the idea. He's trying to say, because he does describe it, but he's basically preempting his description of saying like, hey, I'm going to try to describe this thing, but it really doesn't capture it in its entirety. All right. So that's why he's like, you can't describe it, but then he tries to describe it. He's saying, we're going to give this a shot, but it's the full picture of the thing, because you can't put words to what it truly is. Okay. And he says the One cannot be seen. It's eternal, inconceivable, perfectly free from corruption. The One rules all. Nothing has authority over it. It is absolutely complete and so needs nothing. It is not right to think of it as a God or as like God. It is more than just God. So he's saying even the name of God, even the concept of God is way below this one. And then finally he says it is utterly perfect light. It is utterly perfect light. That is key. And then he says the one simply apprehends itself in its own perfect light. Okay? So that's key. The one is pure light, and all the one does is apprehend its own perfect light. So, according to Gnosticism, basically, reality begins as a mind of divine light, perfect light, but it doesn't actually have a beginning. It's eternal. And eternal means no beginning and no end. So the one, it's not like the one just poof, popped into existence one day. The one is eternal. So one might be thinking, how is that possible? How can you not have a beginning or an end? So here is the first piece of our puzzle. How can you not have a beginning or an end? Think about a circle. A circle has no beginning or end point. You can arbitrarily select a point to be its beginning and end point. But the circle itself is a perfect shape that has no beginning and it has no end, and it is an infinite idea or concept as well. That's because if you imagine going around the circle, you could go around again and again and again and again and again and again infinitely. So it's eternal and infinite. Why this is incredibly important is because a circle is a way to properly conceptualize infinity. Most people try and conceptualize infinity as a line that just goes on forever. It just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. That is not the proper way to imagine infinity because that's not fully graspable. What you can grasp is a circle. Like you can draw a circle and point to it and be like, that's a circle. You can imagine a circle in your mind. And in that circle, a circle is both finite and infinite at the same time. It's finite and infinite. That's the important key. It's both together. And you're going to see throughout understanding what reality is and what existence is, that almost always you're going to have what seem like paradoxes be true, but they're not. They're just expressed in different ways. Like reality is one, but it's also many. Reality is infinite, but it's also finite. Reality is eternal, but aspects of it are also temporal. So a circle is infinite in that you can go around and around and around and around, but it's also finite because you can be like, look, there is one circle. There is one circle there. One infinite, one finite instance of infinity. So it is infinite, but you can grasp it. It's one circle. It's very important to understand. So the reason why I'm saying this is because any linear idea of reality is false because it is fraught with logical inconsistencies. So we have to have a cyclical conception of reality for everything to tie together, nice and neat and logical. So, because if we conceptualized reality as a line, just going and going and going and going, its end and its beginning are not graspable, but a circle absolutely is. There is no beginning and there is no end because everything connects in a closed loop, literally. So that's important to keep in mind. The one is perfect light. And here's why this is important. If you are to look at so here I want to mention something as well. What I'm going to attempt to do today is explain something that is very mathematically complex without using math. So that's hard to do, but so just keep that in mind, okay? If you think of the idea of a circle, right? And not just a circle that's staying there, but imagine a point going around the circle, right? Like going around and around and around and around, a point flowing along a circle. Here's the thing. A circle is mathematically equivalent to two waves known as sinusoids, specifically a sine and cosine wave. If you don't know what that means, doesn't matter. It's fine. All you need to know is that a circle is mathematically equivalent to waves. How is that possible? Well, think about it like this. 4 is equal to 2 plus 2. So 4 is 2 plus 2. But whether you're looking at the 4 or you're looking at the 2 plus 2, you're looking at the information in a different way, in a unity or broken up into parts. So you can think of the waves as the 2 plus 2 part, because you have a circle, which is equal to a sine wave plus a cosine wave. Remember, for any mathematicians out there, I'm simplifying this greatly by glossing over things like imaginary numbers and things like that, because we want to keep this simple and conceptually easy, and that's what's important to grasp this. Okay, so why is that? Why is that important? Because we can conceptualize frequencies of light as sinusoidal waves. Okay, so we can conceptualize frequencies of light as sinusoidal waves. Furthermore, what we can do is realize that we can conceptualize this in a completely immaterial way that is purely about the laws of thought, reason, logic, and math itself, meaning those waves can also be conceptualized as thought waves, because they're not waves of anything material. Light is not material, by the way. Photon is not a material particle. So the reason why that's important is because we have a circle, which is an eternal, consistent, closed loop that is infinite, that is mathematically equivalent to two waves, which we can conceptualize as light and thought. Here is why this is important. The Gnostics conceptualized the one as an eternal entity, concept, an eternal being that was light, that thinks about itself. Light and mind. Light is mind, light is thought, thought is light. And mathematically, this can be eternity can be conceptualized as a circle and have these two waveforms as its mathematical equivalent. Okay, one final thing. You can have, of course, more than one of these circles. You could have a vast multitude of these circles, possibly an infinity of these circles, but that gets into some math that I don't have time to discuss right now. But the main thing to remember is this circle can be essentially multiplied until you have a vast multiplicity of these circles. Very quickly, because I don't want to get to it, I'm so tempted to get into very quickly. This is also equivalent to the concept of nothingness. This is because a circle that is at the origin, every point on that circle is equidistant from each other, meaning the total result or value of that circle across one cycle is 0. An easy way to understand it is like this. If you have something that contains every number, the result of the thing that contains every number is 0, because for every positive number, you also have its negative counterpart. You have 1 and -1, 2 and -2, 3 and -3, 4 and -4, 5 and -5. In a similar fashion, the value of a circle centered at the origin is 0. So the 1 is also a 0 and an infinity. And you can have a vast multiplicity of these circles because they are zeros, they are nothings, and you can multiply nothingness without having any logical problems, inconsistencies, or errors. So basically, you have a vast multiplicity of these circles. And these circles are equivalent to frequencies of light. All right? These are frequencies of light. The 1 is a collection of light / thought that is eternal. And a great way to visualize this, see if I can show this on screen without my camera freaking out, is through the symbol of the flower of life. The symbol of the flower of life is a bunch of circles. And if you remember, each circle is actually equivalent to waveforms. What you're looking at is actually a vibratory structure. A structure, they aren't just circles sitting there. Mathematically speaking, this is also equivalent to a structure of frequency patterns, waveforms. Now, I'm not saying that reality is literally built like the flower of life, but it's a very simple model to quickly kind of conceptualize what we're talking about here. Okay, so you have the 1. The 1 is light. The 1 is eternal. The 1 is infinite. All the 1 can do is reflect on itself, think about itself, because there's literally nothing else. According to Gnosticism, there's literally nothing else other than the 1. And so the 1 thinks about itself, and all of its thoughts get generated as beings known as eons in Gnostic cosmologies. In Gnostic cosmology, eons are beings of light that are just the thoughts of the 1. The important thing to understand, and this is key about what we're talking about today, is that each of these beings of light form what's known as a syzygy, or a divine pair. So each of these beings of light come as pairs, a masculine and feminine aspect. But the thing to remember is that they're actually a single being. But they have a feminine aspect and a masculine aspect. And so depending on how you look at it, you can look at them as a single androgynous being, or if you wanted to look at the feminine and masculine aspects in isolation, you could see them as partners. Kind of like 4 equals 2 plus 2, right? There's the 4 part, which is unified, and then there's there's 2 plus 2. There are 2 elements, 2 things. 1 element on one side equal to 2 elements on the other side, but they're the same concept, just depending on you're looking at the 4 way of representing it or the 2 plus 2 way of representing it. That's how these syzygies are. They are a single androgynous being, but they're also a pair, balanced masculine and feminine. Now, balanced masculine and feminine does not have to do with sex. Doesn't have to do with biological sex, because this is a being of fucking light, okay? It doesn't have a penis or a vagina. It's a being of fucking light, all right? So it's not about that. And I'm saying that because a lot of people get this twisted, and it's really annoying, and I see all these new age spiritualists trying to like interject these ideas of like gender and sex on fucking light, okay? It's light, all right? It's math, it's light. Math and light don't have genitals. Also, it is beyond our concept of gender as a psychological concept, because the way we understand gender as a psychological concept is dependent on the particular time and culture that we're born into. Different cultures and different times in history have different definitions of what masculine and feminine is, okay? So long story short, masculine and feminine doesn't have to do with literal gender or sex. It's a way of expressing polarity. So you could just as easily say positive and negative, like in energy. So imagine it like, instead of doing 4, let's think of 0, okay? Think of 0. 0 equals 2 plus -2. So 0, a unified entity, is equivalent to 2, you could say 2 minus 2, or to be more appropriate for what we're talking about, 2 plus -2. The 0 is in balance because of its 2 components that are opposite of each other in terms of their sign. Okay? 2 plus -2. But one entity, which is the 0, but can be expressed as parts. And positive and negative are simply values. It doesn't have any, it's not like, oh, positive is good and negative is bad. No, this is just like energy. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have any relevance to like positive numbers are good and negative. No, it's not like that. It's just energy, just polarity, just way of expressing opposite energy. All right. So you can already see how the Gnostics are having this very enlightened understanding, even if they might not fully grasp what it is that they're talking about specifically, with regard to mind, light, frequencies, mathematical balance. All right. So this mind is thinking about itself. This mind is thinking about itself, and it's being generated as pairs, syzygies, beings of light, and they're called eons in Gnostic cosmology. And this realm that the eons inhabit is called the pleroma, which means the fullness. Okay, it's the pleroma, which means the fullness, and it's literally that. It's a plenum of light, a sea of light. Sophia decides. Sophia is one of the eons. Okay, Sophia is one of the eons, and her name means wisdom. Sophia is literally the Greek word for wisdom. So Sophia decides she wants to create without her masculine counterpart and out of alignment from the will of the one. So prior to Sophia having this independent thought, the entire reality is in perfect balance. All the thoughts of the mind of the one are in perfect balance, perfect harmony. Everything is structured in a perfectly harmonious way. But Sophia is like, no, I want to do something different, something else. And so when she does this, she gives birth to darkness. She gives birth to darkness. Now, typically, in like Sethian Gnosticism, Sophia gives birth to a being known as Yaldabaoth, or the demiurge, the demiurgos. And demiurge just means craftsman, which is a dark being described as having the body of a dragon, the head of a lion, whose eyes flash like lightning bolts. This is the god of the Bible, according to Gnostic cosmology. She gives birth to the god of the Bible. Now, in Valentinian Gnosticism, it's slightly different, and I'm just going to throw this in there because I actually prefer this interpretation. In Valentinian Gnosticism, Sophia gives birth to a daughter named Achamoth, which means the wisdom of death, which is essentially Sophia's shadow self, like the dark. So Sophia gives birth to a daughter, but it's like the dark version of her, and then that dark version of her gives birth to Yaldabaoth. I like that version a little better. For reasons I won't get into now, but I just want to throw that in there because you might hear a couple different versions. so typically in Sethian Gnosticism, Sophia gives birth to the Yaldabaoth. In Valentinian Gnosticism, Sophia gives birth to Achamat, who gives birth to Yaldabaoth. And I like it. I think it's cool. For other reasons. If you want to know why, watch my video I did called The Gospel of Jesus' Brother. The Gospel of James. I go into a lot about Achamat in that. Okay. So, like, what the fuck, Sophia, right? So, Sophia creates basically the devil. And the devil, a.k.a. Yaldabaoth, he's got a ton of names, by the way. Yaldabaoth, Samael, Saklas, Nibro, Arariel, or Arariel, I believe. What else? He's got a lot of names. Guy's got a ton of names, and they're not very good names. Samael means blind god. Saklas means foolish god. Nibro means rebel. So he's the blind, foolish rebel, essentially. The blind, foolish rebel, this being. And this being thinks it's the only god in existence because Sophia's like, oh shit, this thing's scary. I'm gonna throw it into the void. And she throws it into the void. And so Yaldabaoth looks around and goes, hey, I'm the only one here. I must be God. And he goes, I am God and there is no other. And then Yaldabaoth creates the material world and the archons. The archons are, so essentially like how the one begins to think about itself and generate aspects of itself. Yaldabaoth kind of does that, but in a dark way, in an inverted way. Yaldabaoth begins to, from itself, produce beings of darkness. So everything Yaldabaoth does is like an imitation of the higher realms. So Yaldabaoth generates from itself beings of darkness called archons, which is the Greek word for ruler. They're the rulers. He's the chief archon. He generates 12 of them, each one for the sign of the zodiac, assigns 7 of them to the 7 classical planets, and 5 of them to the bottom of the abyss, which is the material world associated with the 4 elements and ether, making 5. So you have 12, zodiac, 7, planets, 5, the elements. Long story short, what the Gnostics are trying to say, you don't have to believe in astrology or any of that. What the Gnostics are trying to say is that the material world is governed by laws that trap you. Whether it's matter or cosmic forces or whatever, these archonic forces of ignorance, okay? And in the Neogenian system, which is the system I promote, our goal is to overthrow all these archonic systems, whether these archonic systems take the form of oppressive patriarchal systems, oppressive economic systems, religion, like brainwashing mainstream religion, or even psychological archons like addiction, anger, wrath, etc. Okay? They're everything that keep us from achieving our true self, right? So anyways, Earth is, so he creates, by the way, he creates 7 heavens of chaos, and then Earth is the bottom of the abyss. So according to Gnostic cosmology, the 7 heavens are actually the 7 layers of hell, and Earth is the bottom of the abyss. So, Christians who are trying to get to heaven, Gnostics would be like, that's just hell on another level. You're just upgrading heaven to like the bronze package or something, or hell, the bronze package. It's all hell. So the Gnostics see, and Earth is literally the bottom of the abyss. And so here's the idea. Sophia is a complicated character because in Gnosticism, she's looked at as a savior figure. Why is she looked at as a savior figure? Because she is trying to recover the sparks of light. Because Yaldabaoth traps light in matter, and that's us, right? We are the one that has become trapped in matter, according to Gnosticism. So we have been trapped in darkness. We are the one that's been trapped in matter. Sophia is like, oh shit, I want to help them remember what they are so they can free themselves from matter, achieve gnosis, which means knowledge of what they really are, and return to the pleroma. Now, real quick aside, I'll just throw it in there. I like the version with Achamat because the version with Achamat is really cool because the Achamat is Sophia's dark side, right? And so Achamat is trapped in this liminal realm known as like the 8th realm. And Achamat like her tears become the rain, her smile becomes the sun. Like the material world is a manifestation of her power. And Yaldabaoth is kind of like an instrument of her power. Yaldabaoth still doesn't know she exists. But the cool thing is in that version, we are all parts of Sophia's light that fell. And so Achamat cannot be restored to the Pleroma until every single soul of divine light has ascended to the Pleroma as well. So it's all wrapped together. It's all tied together because everything is the one just thinking about itself in different ways, and parts of the one has become trapped in matter. And so we're here to liberate ourselves and be released from matter. So Jesus Christ is looked at as an emissary of Sophia. Sometimes Christ is even considered like an avatar of Sophia, who is here to, whether you want to think of Christ, Jesus as an avatar of Sophia or a messenger of Sophia or whatever, it doesn't matter. Jesus is linked to Sophia. And Jesus's mission is to get people to look within and realize that we are all sons of the living Father or children of the living Father, and to achieve gnosis, knowledge of what we are, and return to the divine realms. So it's interesting because in Gnosticism, Sophia is looked at as a savior figure. However, if you take Gnosticism at face value, she's kind of the one that fucked everything up, right? And now don't get me wrong, the Gnostics, didn't really say anything too negative about Sophia. They had a lot of great things to say about Sophia, but they still considered like her error, her deficiency, her error. So it's still kind of because in traditional Christianity, who's the one that gets blamed? Eve, the woman who eats from knowledge. And now in Gnosticism, Eve is a hero, another part of Sophia who brings knowledge to humanity, who listens to Jesus. They're all aspects of each other. But in traditional Christianity, it's like, oh, the woman wrecked everything, right? It has that misogynistic view, which led to a lot of problems and a lot of misogyny in the church that's still there to this day, which is why, in Catholicism, women can't teach, etc. But Gnosticism, Eve is a hero because she eats from the tree of knowledge and helps us wake up. So, but even though they have a lot of great things to say about Sophia and Gnosticism, it still has a bit of that flavor, doesn't it? That like, oh, it's the woman that fucked everything up. She wanted to do something on her own without her masculine counterpart. It's got that, they didn't say it like that, but if you think about it logically, and that's a question I get in the comments all the time. Like, why did Sophia do that? And like, didn't she fuck everything up? Yeah, if you take Gnosticism at face value, that's what it looks like. Again, important to remember that masculine and feminine doesn't literally mean like penis and vagina or even our gender norms today, but still, it's presented in a way that one could come to certain conclusions that is, still like, oh, it's all the feminine fucked everything up. So let's talk about this and how this relates to Earth being hell and all this. So the Gnostics looked at Earth being hell and it's like, well, what the hell, Sophia? You generated this evil being who created hell. Now we're trapped in hell and we're trying to get out. And so Sophia's good because she's trying to help us get out, but also she started this whole thing in the first place. Okay, so here's where we have to understand how reality actually works. So if you think about it, think about Gnosticism. Because Gnosticism says eventually we will all be liberated and return to the realm of divine light. Okay, that's what Gnosticism says. At the end of time, we will all be liberated. We will all achieve gnosis, and we will turn to the realm of divine light, and everything will be restored. Okay, but think about that for a minute. All right, it's the end of time. We're all, in the realm of divine light. Then what? What are you gonna do? So the idea here is that there is no, it's just happily ever after forever? That would be a linear infinity, which is the wrong type of infinity. We need a cyclical reality, infinity, for everything to cohere logically and rationally. So here's the key to understand, is that in the Neo-Genian interpretation of reality, At the end of time, we will all be restored, yes, to a singularity of light. But then the process will occur again with another Big Bang and another journey throughout space and time, and then another collapse into a singularity of light. And it happens again and 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 again. And a lot of systems like the Stoics and certain aspects of Hinduism have understood this. So at face value, this might sound like a bad thing, but let me explain why it's not actually. So if you are in a realm of perfect light, that might be chill for a while, but it would eventually turn into hell. Because if you're in a realm with perfect balance, total balance, nothing interesting ever happens. Ever. You would go mad. You would be so fucking bored because things are interesting because of storylines, of drama. If you read a book where there was no conflict, no hero trying to struggle to understand themselves or a villain to overcome or whatever, the book was nothing at all except different characters being like, oh, you look lovely today. Oh, so do you. That would be no one would want to read that book. It'd be a stupid book. It'd be a horrible book. So the idea here is that Earth is not actually hell. Earth is simply where the story unfolds. It's where we as light can express itself in material forms. It's like logging into a video game. Now, it feels like hell because the programmers, or like the rulers, right, of this world, those under the thumb of the archons, the billionaire elite, religious entities, etc., keep us enslaved and create hellish conditions. But it doesn't have to be that way. So imagine if every book you ever read was awful. Like you've never read a good book in your life. There's every book, oh my God, this is a horrible book, this is a horrible book, this is a horrible book, this is a horrible book. You would probably come to the conclusion that books are bad. Books are horrible. If every book you ever read is horrible, you're just like, books are horrible. People tend to think Earth is hell because the only experience they have on Earth is horrible. But a material universe does not have to be horrible. The material universe is like a blank book, and you can write the story any way you want. Right now, it's a shitty story because we have shitty authors, which are the rulers of this world. But it doesn't have to be that way. That's why the goal is to make this realm better so that we can have interesting, beautiful experiences in this realm while being connected to the realms of light, and be able to experience the realms of light and be able to experience this realm as well. Think of it like a video game, all right? If you are in a video game, or if you believed that you were in a video game and the video game was real, that would be terrifying. Like, oh my God, there's dragons and trolls and monsters and I'm gonna die, holy shit. You would be traumatized if you thought the game was real. But if you were able to program a great game and understand that the game is just an expression, it has a completely different connotation to it. And so it's like being able to log into a video game and log out. You can experience the game world and you can experience the real world. You can experience the realm of divine light. You can experience the material world, which is the world where we can experience each other in bodies and separation. And it is interesting to experience each other in physical form rather than just like complexes of frequency. I'm sure it's beautiful to experience each other as complexes of frequency, but it's also interesting to experience each other in material localized forms in space and time. So, however, at the end of time, everything will collapse again into a singularity of light, where everything is in perfect balance. Now, if that were to be the case, for eternity, that would become hell because nothing interesting would ever happen. So Sophia, by acting out of alignment, actually saves us from a state of total banality, total boredom, total nothingness, locked into an eternal prison in our own minds. So Sophia actually saves us from hell. Now, how does she do this? By acting out of balance. Here, this is how this relates to the actual metaphysics of the system. And by the way, that's, I'm giving you the Neo-Genian interpretation. The Gnostics didn't say anything about reality being cyclical or Sophia saving us. The Gnostics didn't say Sophia saved it. They saw her as fucking up, making a mistake, and now we have to fix her fuck up. That's how the Gnostics look at it. But they looked at her in a positive way. They didn't look at her too negatively. They had a ton of respect for Sophia. But I'm just saying, what I'm explaining to you now is the Neo-Genian interpretation. I'm Neo-Genian, and I often use Gnosticism to explain these concepts. But I am not a Gnostic in the traditional sense. I'm a Neo-Genian. And so reality is this cyclical process. In terms of Gnosticism, Sophia acts out of balance. Now, how this links up to the metaphysics is this. Remember how we said everything is light? Everything are these circles, mathematical circles. Everything is waves. So these sinusoidal waves, here's the interesting thing. When these sinusoidal waves are in perfect alignment, no variation in amplitude, and everything in phase, right? Imagine aligning waves as perfectly as you possibly could. If you do that, you simply have light, but it doesn't project anything. Now, let me explain. If you are to vary the frequencies by varying the amplitude and shifting things so they're out of phase, so that things are no longer in balance, guess what you get? You get something known as an interference pattern. Waves are interfering with each other. And what happens when you have light illuminated through an interference pattern is you get a hologram. You get a hologram. So, reality is a holographic expression of a divine mind of light. And when that divine mind of light has all of its waveforms in perfect alignment, perfect phase, with no variation in amplitude, there is no holographic projection. But as soon as you introduce imbalance by shifting the phase and varying the amplitude, you get an interference pattern which gives rise to which can give rise to a hologram. Can be. You want to structure it in the right way, but it can. So think of it like, let me put it in terms of a hologram. So there are three main components to a hologram. There's the source beam, which is a laser. Okay? You have the source beam, which is a laser. Then you have a holographic film, which is just like, think about it like a photographic film. If you look at photographic film, you see a picture of something. You see a 2D image of something. If you were to look at a holographic film, it would look like noise, like static. Wouldn't look like a picture. So what is that? It's an interference pattern. And as soon as you shine the laser on the holographic film, that interference pattern tells the light how to structure itself such that it produces an image, a picture. A 3D picture, not a 2D picture, but a three-dimensional picture. Now, our reality is, of course, is more complicated than that because it has to do with a hologram, like a holographic film, simply tells light how to structure itself in such a way that you perceive a three-dimensional image, but it's not solid, right? Like you can't touch it. It's not like a solid thing, but our world is solid. And that is because there's another element in this which has to do with light slowing down, slowing below the speed of light. And according to David Bohm, a famous physicist and protege of Einstein, he believed that when light slows, it generates matter, or the illusion of matter. He said that you can think of matter as frozen light. So matter is essentially frozen light. So essentially, once you add all these components together, light structuring itself into a certain way according to interference pattern and slowing itself down, you get a material world. So think of it like the source. You can also think of it in terms of a video game. Think of the source as like a programming code, right? Like that's the code. And then you can arrange the code. Like if you have code that's like super boring, it's just like, oh, this is really nice, perfectly symmetrical code. Well, it might not generate anything. But if you arrange the code in a certain way, you can generate a video game world. And so you can exist as like experiencing the code or experiencing a video game. But they're two very different ways of experiencing something. Whether you experience the code or experience the video game, but they're still related. Just like the material world and the physical world, or the material world and the immaterial, mental, divine light, the metaphysical aspect to reality. So to think that Earth is hell would be kind of like thinking video games are hell. If you thought that a video game was real and you were really in it and you only played awful video games, right? Let's say Silent Hill, okay? You're stuck in the video game Silent Hill and you think that it's real. You're going to be like, oh my God, I hate video games, even though you wouldn't know what a video game is, but you'd be like, I hate this place. I never want to come here again. It's hell. It's awful. I want to get out. That's why people think that Earth is hell, because we're living in like, a Silent Hill akin to we're living in a pretty shitty world. But it doesn't have to be. You can make great games, and we can make a great game here in the game of life. And Sophia, what Sophia represents in the Neogenian system, partly is the aspect of creation in the form of an interference pattern of light. See, the Gnostics said that Sophia, they called it Sophia's defect or deficiency because it was out of balance. But the so-called defect is actually what gives rise to the interference pattern, which allows there to be a material world for us to exist in and have experiences together so that we're not locked into this banal realm of light forever. The Gnostics even called the realm of perfect light this Sige, which means the silence. Because in utter, imagine utter perfection would just be silence. Or you can imagine a single tone. It's super boring. But as soon as you put some variation, change the frequency, shift the phase, you get a melody. That can be a really bad melody. But if you start aligning everything properly, you can begin to create beautiful music. So Sophia's voice is what saves us from what would be the damnation of the eternal silence. Now, this isn't to say the realm of light is bad. No, it's awesome. But the material world isn't bad either. It's an expression of the light. If we were stuck in the realm of light forever with nothing to do, that would be hell. So it's about our role here as creators. And Sophia truly, so a lot of people are like, oh, well, Sophia's name is wisdom, but it didn't seem like a very wise thing to do, to act out of harmony of the one. It was the wisest thing that you could possibly do in that situation, because we would be locked into hell if we didn't. We would be locked into the damnation of the eternal silence. But in Sophia's wisdom, she used her voice of creation to break the silence and create the symphony of what we experience as the material world. And it's up to us to build a beautiful song by arranging the pattern of this reality and this world into something that's beneficial for all, which in the Neogenian system is known as a teleocracy, a planetary civilization, a teleocracy, which is basically a purposeful society where the purpose is to maximize the quality of life for everyone, for every individual and the collective. That's how we create a harmonious world in the material world that we can experience and grow in together. So Sophia, in the Gnostic interpretation, she fucked up, but in the Neogenian interpretation, she did not. She represents the aspect of creation. She represents the moment that we can have the hologram of the world actually generate something rather than being, nothing. So if you think of those three components again, like there's the source, and then there's the holographic film, and then there's the when you shine the light, the source light onto the holographic film, you get the hologram. So that's the source is like the divine mind of light in perfect harmony. The interference pattern is kind of like the realm of the eons, and then the hologram is like the material world. So when the eons are in balance, you don't get an interference pattern. But when they're out of balance, you do get an interference pattern, which is not necessarily a bad thing. If you're playing a song and you're like, oh, this is a bad song because some of the notes are different than the other notes. It's like, well, wait, that's why that's the point of the song, for there to be difference. You can have difference is what makes life interesting. Which is why, the idea of like sexism and racism and homophobia and all that is such utter bullshit. Difference is what makes this place interesting. Imagine if we're all the same, how fucking boring it would be. Be hell, be awful. But people are so terrified of anything that's not like their particular expression at this place, arbitrary space. Fools, idiots. Anyway, one other quick thing that I want to throw in there because I think it's important. So in Gnosticism, there's basically the one, and then we are all sparks of the one, and then we kind of like reunite at the end. I just want to make clear that in the Neogenian interpretation, it is a bit different than that. In the Neogenian interpretation, instead of there just being one mind, every one of us is a one, a soul. And together we form a network. And that network is a single mind. But it is the result of us as a network. It doesn't exist independently from us. It is not higher than us. It is what we are. Now, no single mind can be above it, of course. But it is what we are, expressing ourselves as multiplicity. So here, I showed you before the symbol of the flower of life. And I told you that, oh, this, each circle's like, imagine each circle as being frequencies, and this is like a collection of frequencies. So you could think of this, but what this actually is a soul. Okay, it's a soul, a structure of vibratory patterns. It is a soul. Now, the network of souls would be this. Okay, where each circle is its own flower of life. I call this the garden of life or the garden of light. So think of us as like a flower in the garden of light, which makes up this singular pattern. But this pattern only exists because of us, and it is what we are. And so you can think of it that way. If you think of each of us as like an eternal flower, and then the collective consciousness that we form is like the garden. The garden just exists because, if you removed all the flowers and all the plants from the garden wouldn't exist anymore. The garden is the aggregate collection of the plant life. And so what we in the Neogenian system call the absolute is the collective network of each of us as an individual eternal soul, which we call a zeta. So I just wanted to make that clear. In the Neogenian interpretation, it's not like there's just one, and then we all kind of get sucked into it and dissolve into like an ocean. No, rather each and every one of us is a one, a zeta, an eternal soul, but we exist within a network. That's why reality is one and many. It is one network mind expressed as many individualized, particularized minds. It is a universal that particularizes itself. And to go even further here, just to give you a visual to grasp this, if we look at this image, we can even get a better idea. So imagine this is your body, okay? This is you. And you can imagine this is your body and also like your egoic identity. This, though, is what you really are. You are a zeta. You are a soul that is linking to this body like a player logging into a video game. So you are a zeta, you are a soul, you are a collection of frequency patterns, a collection of light forms that is interfacing with a body to experience a localized domain. However, on top of that, you are also one node inside this network where each circle is its own. I of course drew this outside of this, but that's just for illustrations purposes. This cannot exist outside of this. Everything is always interconnected. So it's not like one of these can pop out and leave. They're all interconnected. I just have it in like this so that I can actually point to it. Okay. So you and us, we are all this. All right. We are the absolute. You, me, all of us together are this, expressing ourselves in individualized form, individualized units that then interact with each other through bodies, which is a holographic projection of light, in what we perceive as the material realm as a way of interacting with each other in a localized domain. Again, really quick, remember, this is a simplified way of understanding it. I'm not saying that reality is literally structured exactly like the flower of life. It is a simplistic model that's very useful and pretty close in terms of frequencies and circles and waves, etc. But the actuality of it is, of course, much more complex. But the symbol, it's a good symbol for it. It's a sign. It's a symbol. It's not the actual thing. The actual thing is much more complex. But it can give you an idea to start to grasp this. So let me see if check my notes here. My notes. Where are my notes? Oh, I turned them off. Why did I do that? Let's see. I just want to make sure that I didn't miss anything here. Yeah. Okay. So the main thing to understand here, Earth isn't actually hell. It just seems like it. But we can change that. We can transform it. It's hellish, but not by definition, by its nature, hell. We can transform it. We live in a cyclical reality where we go through these cycles of the generation of the material world, having this interesting story that unfolds, and then eventually collapsing once again into a singularity of light. And this happens again. And each time it's a new story. It's not like we're locked into the same, it's not like Groundhog Day. It likely is not Groundhog Day. It is much more likely that each instance is a unique instance. Now, it's a little more complicated than that, but simplistically speaking, it's likely a unique instance each time. So it wouldn't be like, oh, I have to read the same book over and over and over and over. It's like, oh, I read a book and now I'm going to start a new book with a different story and whatnot. So reality exists in this cyclical fashion, which it must. A linear reality, is not logically coherent. A cyclical reality is logically, rationally, mathematically coherent. Linearity is not. So we live in this cyclical pattern, and we go from matter to light, matter to light. Light is always in the background, just like the programming code is always in the background. But Sophia, in the Neogenian interpretation, symbolically represents shifting the waveforms of the source such that it generates the holographic projection that we call the material world. In the Neogenian system, we call it the holos. So There was a lot to digest in this. I hope that you were able to understand. If not, let me know in the comments. If so, let me know in the comments. It's always helpful for me to understand what it is that's difficult, what's easy, or if you want more detail or less detail, because we could bring in mathematics all day long, but people usually don't really like math. But let me know what you think in the comments. And the important thing to remember here is that under the Neogenian interpretation, Sophia was wise and really lived up to her name as wisdom in being the utterance of her voice that broke the silence and gave rise to the material realm. Yes, we have to go through some shitty parts, which is like the tooth and nail of evolution and natural selection and survival of the fittest. That's awful. That's bloody. That's horrible. And then, the earth trying to fix itself but it's like, that's how it works. Imagine you pick up a guitar and you try and play, a super advanced song. First time you pick up a guitar and try and play a song, it's going to sound like shit, right? And you work for a week, you probably still sound like shit. You work for 2 weeks, you probably still sound like shit. You work for a month, and hey, you sound like shit, but you should a little better, a little less like shit. And then you play and play and play and play and play. You get better and better and better until like, oh my God, this is a great song. But at first, the first time you pick that up, it's like, oh my God, this is awful. The first couple weeks, the first couple months, oh my God, this is awful. We are right now as divine minds in the learning how to play the guitar phase of existence. Evolution, tooth and nail, survival of the fittest was like picking it up for the first time. And it sounded just awful. But it's making sound, but it sounds awful. Gaining self-awareness, forming societies and systems and cultures and philosophy and math, and it sounded a little better. But all fucking oligarchs and billionaires and religion and genocide and murder and rape and sexism and homophobia, it's still not the best melody. But we continue to refine it. Eventually, it's going to be beautiful music. And that's the point. Eventually, it's going to be beautiful music. We just have to practice. And that's why in the Neogenian system, we're about creating a new world right here and right now, because we're conducting that symphony, aligning the orchestral components so that it produces a harmonious melody. That's teleocracy, a planetary civilization. That's what we are here to do. And overthrow the archonic forces that keep us from actualizing that harmonious melody. And then the source would just be like a pure tone. Be it's boring. Be super boring. So what do? You start to play the song. At first I was like, oh, that's awful. It's not boring anymore, but oh, it's awful. But then it gets better and better and better. It's just like, wow, this is beautiful. This is amazing. And everything's right. That's what we're working for. Pythagoras believed this, by the way. So Pythagoras said all is number, and number rules the universe. But he also talked about the music of the spheres. So he believed that reality was a mathematical reality, but also a musical reality. Reality is music, math and music, because math is music. The different scales, you can think of the energy quantization of quantum mechanics. Anyway, let's create a better song, a beautiful symphony, and it no longer will be hell. It will be a brilliant reality where we are finally able to express the divine light inside of ourselves and experience it in each other and build the kingdom of heaven right here and right now. That's why Jesus said, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Remember, repent in Greek was originally metanoia, which means change your mind. And he said the kingdom of heaven is within you. And at hand means right here. So Jesus said, change your mind. The kingdom of heaven is inside you right now, just waiting for you. And then we actualize it and express it in this world. That is the key. Tell them in the comments what you thought, what you want understood more. If you want more explanation, let me know. But I hope you enjoyed this. Oh, also let me know if I've been kind of playing with the idea of when I release a video doing like a live stream breakdown to go in deeper. Let me know if you like that, because I just released a video on Is Earth Hell? And so now I did a further dive, a further breakdown of it. Let me know if you like that. Tell me in the comments. I'm curious what format you guys like. And as always, remember, this is way more than a channel. We are a revolution of consciousness, here to wake the world the hell up, spread enlightenment, make it go viral. So remember, hit like, share, and subscribe. Spread this everywhere. If you want to help out even more, become a member. You get access to a lot of great stuff. You get access to members only videos. We have a new members only video that we're having right after this called Is God a Myth? How to Prove the Shocking Truth. So that's going to be a good one. You also get access to free downloads on alchemy, Kabbalah, inner transformation, ritual work, etc. And it helps out a lot and allows me to create bigger and better content. I appreciate it very much. You can also check out my books. And if you're looking for a free way to support, give me a follow on Spotify. It's a great platform for, well, I don't know if it's a great platform. There's a lot of, nothing is really great these days, but it allows us to spread information and reach a new audience. And that's what's important for raising consciousness. So go give me a follow on there. Links to all of those things, my books, Spotify, etc., are in the description of this video. Thank you all very much. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, Dallas, Nusalina, Chris Magistus, Eric, Sandy, Soul, Toronado, Son of God, Solange, Trickster Angel, and Banshee, and everyone else. Thank you very much, and Ad Astra.